Hello, fifth graders. Happy Friday to you. Congratulations on soaring through another week of this new style of learning and this new style of living. I hope that you guys moved your bodies a lot this week, that you learned, that you connected with friends, and that you were helpful to your parents and to your grandparents. Today we're going to do all of our work in this one video, and I'm going to give you a challenge as well. We're going to start off with our vocabulary assignment, so please grab your vocab book and open up to yesterday's work, which is on page 114. First, I'm going to review the correct answers for a dog's life, and then I'm going to remind you what your assignment is for today. A dog's life. Your first answer should be classified. The next answer is selective, followed by security, then navigate, avalanches, and please, okay? Your assignment for vocabulary today is page 114, the second half of the page, which is called clowning around. Now switching over to As Brave as You. Today we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump in to the next chapter. We're going to read pages 147 to 157. I want to remind you that I am checking online to see how your answers are for our comprehension questions. Starting next week, I'm going to be making all of our ELA East work all online. So if you're someone right now who's still doing work in packets or on paper for my class specifically, I want you to make sure that you can do the work online next week. If there's a barrier, if there's a reason you can't do the work online, like you don't have access to technology or there's something going on with your Wi-Fi, I need you to send me a message and I can try to fix that with you, okay? So this is possible. We can do this together and I can be your technology wizard and help you work it out. So next week we're going to all online. As of today, you should have chapters 1 through 7 comprehension questions completed. Starting chapter 8, page 147. Just before lunch, the grandma 5-call warning started up. Jeannie worried that Ernie wouldn't make it all the way back from Tess's, but luckily he was up the hill before the 5th call. And before Jeannie could even tell him about Grandpop's inside-outside room, Ernie steamrolled him and proceeded to spend the next 7 jillion hours going on, yapping about how cool Tess was. Jeannie, I'm telling you, man, she's different. She's tough but sweet, you know? And she's creative about her business, and she's got that cute accent. Jeannie, she took me back to the bar, and we had more ginger beer, but this time in those skinny champagne glasses. Jeannie, she said she likes my sunglasses. I let her wear them for a little while, and you know that I don't ever let nobody touch my shades. Jeannie, she kept telling me to smile, said that she liked it. You know, I don't really just be smiling to be smiling, but she likes it, so whatever. Jeannie, she thinks I look a little bit like a movie star, but she couldn't remember which one. But still. Jeannie, I made like 100 earrings with her. She taught me how to hit the nail better. She hits the nail so good. I bet she could be in construction. It's kind of amazing. Jeannie, she gave me her phone number, man. Wrote it on a paper towel and told me not to lose it. But it don't matter if I lose it, because I already memorized it. Guys, Ernie is in love. Jeannie, Jeannie, Jeannie. Most of it Jeannie let go in one ear and out of the other. Only because if there was one thing he knew about Ernie, it's that he was a sucker for girls. Always had been. There was Keisha, who left him for the rapper. But before Keisha, there was Jessica, a girl in his karate class, who he fell out of love with after she hip-tossed him once. Hard. Slammed him right down onto the mat. Before Jessica, there was Dominique, who moved to Brooklyn from Queens, which to a Brooklynite is like moving to another country. And each time Ernie fell for a new girl, Jeannie's cool, confident brother would become a goofy, googly-eyed fool. Jeannie knew how it always ended. with text message raps and extra hard karate practice chops to Jeannie's arms. Blah, blah, blah was all Jeannie heard. The rest of the day, through dinner, and even through the after-dinner talk, where Grandma called Tess a cutie patootie sweetie pie, and Grandpa called Ernie a brick off the old pile. At least nobody was talking about red trucks, one of which Jeannie was thinking about as much as Ernie was thinking about Tess. Blah, blah, blah up the steps, blah, blah, blah in the room, blah, blah, blah as Jeannie stared at the broken piece of the wheel, wondering what happened to the other half. Blah, blah, blah during Ernie's push-ups and sit-ups, which he did for twice as long because he was sure that Tess would like muscles. Blah, blah, blah as Ernie stared at himself in the mirror, examining, and super weird, kissing his golf ball biceps. Jeannie even wrote in his notebook, number 461, blah, 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 black sheep, black sheep, black sheep? Do black sheep exist? Ernie went on, tessing the room up, and Jeannie continued to ignore him. That is, until Ernie said, oh, and guess what else, man? She's got Wi-Fi in her house. Record scratch. What? So they say record scratch like, have you ever seen like a movie where some like big news is announced and it's like, that's like the record scratch, like, sorry, what? Wi-Fi. I hope that's a good explanation. I bet it was entertaining for you guys to watch me do that. Yup, Ernie said, slapping his hands together over his head in a jumping jack. The internet. To Jeannie's ears, Ernie's voice suddenly sounded slow and low, like internet. Like this was all a dream. Jeannie had so many questions that he needed the answers to. He was getting nervous about the question backup, and his dear friend Google was apparently not a friend of his grandparents. But Tess, yes, Tess. I love Tess, Jeannie said, cheesing. I love her, and I totally understand why you're so into her, except she's so much better than all the other girls, especially Keisha. Why did Jeannie just change his tune instead of being like, blah, 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 I don't care about Tess? He's like, I love Tess now. Why does Jeannie love Tess? Yes, Dylan T. Right, because Tess has the internet and Jeannie wants to Google all of his questions. So now he's like, let's be best friends with Tess. You think so? Ernie asked happily. Jeannie just smiled and nodded, chortling to himself. Internet. Eventually, thankfully, Ernie yapped himself out and fell asleep, snoring so loud that he drowned out the crickets and the frogs. But Jeannie had to stay awake for his 2,200-hour mission. He glanced at the old digital clock on the dresser, every few minutes, waiting for 10 o'clock. Moonlight made shadows from the things on the dresser, including the handicapped red truck. If he could only find the other half of it, he could repair it. He could glue it back together. Sure, Grandma might not have any hobby adhesive or cement glue or any of the other kinds of fancy glues that Jeannie would normally use on a model, but good old plain white glue would work. He would just have to hold the wheel together for like half a day and then hold the wheel to the truck for the other half. But still, at least it would be fixed. But that couldn't happen without the other half. The other good thing about this new discovery of Tess's internet was that maybe he could figure something else out. Maybe he could find someone online in North Hill giving away models, and he could just do some surgery, take a wheel from something else and attach it to the red truck. And because of this, the internet, he felt a flush of Tess love. Was that how Ernie felt? When what had to be the world's slowest moving clock finally arranged its glowing robot dashes to 10 o'clock, Jeannie rolled off of the bed and creep-walked down into the kitchen. Grandpop was already there. Right on time, he said, voice low. His clock had just finished saying, PM. Jeannie could also hear Grandma's snores coming from her and Grandpop's bedroom. Whoa, she was as loud as Ernie. As soon as Jeannie was sitting, Grandpop dove right in, his voice dropping even lower. So, remember last night when we were talking about the gun? Jeannie cut him off. No, about how I haven't been outside, like really been outside, in years. Yep, you said you were concerned, Jeannie said, keeping his voice as soft as Grandpop's. Jeannie shifted in his seat. Is that what I said? Yeah. Well, I want you to take me out there. Help me practice. Practice what? When? Jeannie asked. Practice, well, like being outside. Like really outside. Now. Jeannie glanced at to his left and to his right. Just like someone else had to be listening. At least he hoped someone else was listening so that he would know he wasn't the only person hearing how crazy Grandpop was sounding. Outside? Outside. But it's dark. Doesn't matter to me. Matter to you? Guess not. But I don't have no shoes on. Got on socks? No. Jeannie should have had on socks, especially since his mother had warned him about the splinters in the floor upstairs, but he just couldn't sleep in them. He just unstuck his feet from the warm linoleum and wiggled his toes. Grandpop kicked off his slippers. Me either. So, you gonna take me out there or not? What would you guys do if you were in Jeannie's shoes? Would you take Grandpop outside at 10 o'clock at night? Would you ask more questions? Would you tell him no? I'm really curious what you guys would do. I don't know what I would do. I think I would say no. Back home, Jeannie's mom would never let him or Ernie be outside that time of night. Only wild kids were out after dark, she said. But up there on that hill, Jeannie and Grandpop were the only wild ones. So Jeannie figured that they would be fine. Maybe. Probably. Plus, Samantha, the guard dog, would be out there, right? So, okay, he reluctantly agreed. Grandpop put his hands together in a single silent clap. Great. Come on. He made his way silently to the front door. Jeannie knew Grandma would not be cool with this. He wasn't even really sure if he was all the way cool with it. Because if he broke her husband, like he broke her red truck, she might never forgive him. But it was happening anyway. What he couldn't help but wonder was why Grandpop chose now to do this. Why all of a sudden he had wanted to go exploring after so many years. And why do it with Jeannie, his 11-year-old grandson from Brooklyn, who knew nothing of the country outside at the nighttime. Grandpop, Jeannie whispered as he was unlocking the door. Wouldn't it be better to do it during the day? Because Grandpop started, but caught his words again and began again. Because I don't need nobody thinking I gotta be babysat or something. Like I can't do for myself. Even though I can't see people, I know they can see me. And I don't like that. Jeannie could understand that, especially after what Dad has explained about Grandpop. So why don't you just ask Grandma to take you then? Jeannie asked, especially since she already takes care of you. Grandpop's voice went cold. You got one more time to say she takes care of me. I'm not going to tell you again. She doesn't. Well, Grandpop, that's super serious. No, I know. I'm sorry. I just meant Grandpop had unlocked and opened the door. Listen, I'll tell you why I can't ask her when we get out there, he said, rolling over the question. He grabbed at Jeannie's shoulder, and the second they stepped out onto the porch. Whoa, he really was nervous. Jeannie also realized that it was dark and light at the same time. It was dark because it was night, but the moon looked as close as the sun did during the day. Jeannie remembered how Ma used to call it God's nightlight when he was little, and for a second he wondered what his parents were doing at that very moment. He hoped that they were doing something nice, like maybe walking home from dinner someplace. maybe even looking up at the same moon. Not, he hoped, at home, arguing. It was still pretty warm outside. The crickets and the frogs were in full swing, with a loud game of Pete and repeat. They hadn't drowned the night before, and Jeannie felt unexpectedly relieved, like he wanted to make a ribbit or a whatever sounds crickets make himself. Does anybody know what it's called, what crickets do? Crickets chirp. Here's how I know that really well. Break from the story for a second. My little brother Gordon, who is now a grown-up, and if you see him, you get to call him Mr. Carroll. He had a leopard gecko for a pet. Mason, you'll know what those are because I think that Max used to have one or currently has one. And we had to feed the gecko live crickets. So my dad and I would go to the pet store and they would sell us a bag of live crickets. And the bag would be like all poofed up like this, and the crickets would just be jumping around in it. And it was my job in the car to hold the bag of crickets, and you could like feel them bouncing until we got to our house. And then my dad would open up the top of the gecko's thing, open the bag, and just pour the crickets in, and the gecko would like go and get them. So they chirp is the answer. Take it slow, son, Grandpop said, positioning Jeannie in front of him and placing a hand on each of Jeannie's shoulders. There's steps coming up. I'm used to those from going to the car for my doctor's appointments, but still, take it slow. Jeannie did not need to be told that. He was just as nervous as Grandpop. Okay, here's the first step, Jeannie warned softly, easing down to it. Grandpop squeezed his shoulders. Step. They both took a step down. Then another. Jeannie was now on the grass, but Grandpop had one more step to go. Again, Jeannie said, step. Grandpop took the final step off the porch, still clinging tight to Jeannie. The dew-covered grass tickled Jeannie's feet, and he instantly started walking up on his toes, just like the man crab did. He had never felt wet grass on his feet before, and he decided he didn't really like it. So, where do you want to go? Jeannie asked, taking another step forward. With Grandpop holding onto Jeannie's shoulders for dear life, Jeannie felt like he was wearing a human-sized backpack, one that could talk. That's where we're going to pause for today. I love that we just ended that up with like a little bit of figurative language from Jeannie. What I want you to do now is go do that vocabulary work. Make sure you finished comprehension questions all the way through chapter 7, and please send me a message when you're finished. I also still have 12 friends who need to take last Friday's vocab exam. That's going in as a grade in Jupiter, so you want to take it so that it's not a 0, all right? If you need help opening it up, please let me know. And also, please scroll down on the Google Classroom stream, and please take my survey. All right, thank you guys. Good luck. Have a nice day, and enjoy your beautiful weekends.